rice cookers.
Alright, let's install a hybrid racing ground kit. We got a battery terminal ground. I think that's the rocker cover, valve cover head to the strut tower, and then a combination of different gearbox block ones, but we'll get to that in a minute. And the only reason why I'm saying that is because this side has a small eyelid, and this side has a small eyelid on each end, and this one has a small one and a large one. Same with this one, and I think that might be to do with larger bolts on the gearbox grounds and the 10mm bolts on the chassis. So before we get to that, I need to get this rocker cover, valve cover on here permanently. So let's put the valve cover on, and then we can start putting some grounds. Okay, we have the rocker cover off. It's been VHT wrinkle painted, so if you want to know how I did this, I'll have a little link for it up above and probably in the description. Let's get this gasket back on here. Gasket that I pulled off of this was in really good condition, so I've just given it a quick clean down. Some isopropyl alcohol. So I'm going to go apply this to the 3-bond, and then we'll have a look at where I've applied it. Okay, first up is the corners here on each side. And then where the timing cover meets the head, there and there. That's 12 newton meters. Nice. First we have the valve cover ground. I'm guessing it's this cable from the hybrid kit because it has both kind of 10mm sized holes on each end, which would make sense for this area. Let's get this sort of fixed down on here, and then we'll have an idea of where we can run it. I got this about finger tight on here, and it looks like the best spot is going to be over here on the strut tower. Anything over here kind of forces the ground over towards the master. Granted, this is a right-hand drive, so if you're in America, you might not have the same issues, but yeah. So let's clean up the paint off of here so that we got a good grounding surface, and tighten this up properly, and we'll be done with the valve cover ground. So you can use sandpaper, but in my case I have a Dremel, so I'm going to use it. And with that surface cleaned, we can mount this on here. Another 10mm from the bolt stash. It's quite handy actually when you pull apart several cars, because you get a lot of spare bolts. So if you're doing a case swap on one of these, I'd recommend buying a running and driving RD5, and then you end up with a whole bunch of stuff to use. Okay, that's pretty good and tight. Next one is this one, which seems to be sitting in a pretty natural state there, so we'll just tighten that down. And there we go, that's the valve cover ground on the engine side done. Let's move on to the next one. The next one on the gearbox side is right under that bracket, and then it's going up and to the chassis rail. Okay, so it's going from underneath the bracket right there, where I've got the clutch line mounted, to just there on the chassis. Same as before, I'm going to have to shave off some material so that the ground's got a good connection. Next, what I'm using is just below the shift linkage, there's a bracket here, and I'm pretty sure that was an OEM ground. So 10mm on this end, and then underneath, reusing the CRV's old torque mount bolt position, which is just here, for the bigger end. And we'll slap that on there with a 12mm bolt. I lied. It's not a 12. It's probably 14. 14 mil bolt. So, same as before, you clean up this, get rid of some paint, and you need to clean some shit off of that one as well. Okay, we got this all cleaned up, got the paint off of it, so that's going to make a nice contact and a good ground. Let's get this bolted on here, and then we'll move up to the 10 mil. Alright, that's got that on there nice and tight, and it was a 14 mil bolt. Now let's do the 10 mil. Here we are on the top side. We got this earth or ground nice and cleaned up. I'm going to slap the other end of the cable on with a 10 mil, and it runs through underneath to that 14. And there it is. From this bracket to the frame rail. And I might as well remove this old ground and this old ground here. Maybe there's somewhere else I can use that, because having more grounds doesn't hurt. Last on the hybrid racing kit is a grounding terminal. This is the OEM one. So let's try and use the OEM point. We'll just clean it up a little bit, loosely attach this, and then see what sort of room we've got to work with. Got that nice and cleaned up. 10 mil bolt through it, and let's have a look and see what sort of angles we're working with here. I think that'll work. Might be a little bit fiddly to get on and off, but once it's on there, it's certainly not going anywhere. So let's tighten that down. And that's a wrap on the hybrid racing ground kit. Now, while we're still focused on wiring, might as well finish up the ground for the injectors on the top of the rocker cover there. I'm going to try and run with this cover on the engine. And the ground for the injectors goes right in here. Probably something like that. But to get this to fit onto the engine, I'm going to have to clearance out this section right here for the fuel line. As you can see, it's getting caught up on that line. So I'm just going to clearance this out and then see what we're working with for the ground. Still got to take quite a bit out. Looks like it's about there and there. There we go. That's got a gap around it, so that's going to work. We can use this cover. Very good. Like that. Bend that down out of the way a bit. See if this engine cover still works with that ground, and we'll be away laughing. Yep, we're good. It's going to be just fine. And it's nice and hidden. Looks very clean. Cool, happy with that. So just to recap, ground here, the ground from this bracket to the chassis rail, another ground from the chassis rail there to the bracket on the gearbox, battery terminal ground, and the loom ground here, which technically isn't part of the hybrid kit, but it's kind of the last main ground on the side of the engine. So yeah, there we go. I think that looks pretty good. Ground makes it through here pretty easily. Hybrid racing ground kit's all fitted. Thanks for watching, and if you want to see more content on the CRV, just check one of the playlists and make sure you subscribe. Cheers, see you in the next one.